less than a week away. Are you happy with where you're at as we get ready to get this thing rolling on Monday?
Happy?
No coach is ever happy in a week from the season.
Is that a setup question? Come on, you're better than that.
It's always a setup question. You just always call me out on it.
Happy? No, I'm not happy. Listen, I've really liked our guys' approach. They're working. They're practicing hard. They've been bought into the things that we're trying to do. So, and I'm pleased in those areas to date. You know, are we exactly where I want to be in every facet of how we're playing, every facet of basketball? No, we're not. You know, it's we got 6 new players. We've adjusted some style of play stuff, so there's some things that are a work in progress. But nothing is due to our players not bringing it every day or doing what they're supposed to do. We got another week to kind of get some things in place. So no, I'm not happy. Do I wish we were further along? Sure. But you know, I think we all kind of feel certain that if we'll continue to do what we're doing every day and stay with the right approach, it's got a chance to be a pretty good team.
When you are working to build new chemistry, you know, that many new pieces, how much do you need the real games to start? Because practice, you know, you can only learn so much. Do you need them to start so you can start to even more figure out what you have?
I think the players would like them to start. I think coaches, can we get 2 more months of practice? You know, no, I think there's something to getting to real games and figuring out ways, you know, or learning about yourself in a different environment than the practice every day. I said this for years to anybody that would listen. I wish we could play a different opponent every week in the preseason. I wish we could do a scrimmage every week, because you learn so much more when you see another jersey, you know, in one day than you do in 4 or 5 days of practicing versus yourselves. So yeah, I think there is something to, you know, trying to learn and grow once you start playing games.
Coach Fickle always laments with football in that preseason that they don't, you know, you don't get to do scrimmages. He always talks about it's the only sport where you don't have that. Does that help in basketball, even with yourself, but also the players, that you have some of those secret or non-secret scrimmages to kind of break it up a little bit?
Gosh, I've been so adamant about it since they started letting us do. I think my first year as a head coach, we played an exhibition game. And it's the last time I've ever played an exhibition game, because if you're going to have the ability to do 2 scrimmages behind closed doors, it's not a game, you know, against a Division I opponent. It's worth 5 practices, you know, and so I've been so adamant about utilizing that as much as I possibly can in terms over the course of my head coaching career. And I wish we could do more of it, because again, different styles of play, you know, it's not a real game, so it doesn't bring some of the other stuff involved. You can try different combinations. You can, you know, try different things that maybe worked in practice or didn't work against yourselves, may work against somebody else. I mean, you can learn so much from those scrimmages. So I really value the ones that we are allowed to do, and if they ever let me make decisions for college basketball, we'd be allowed to do 4 or 5 or 6 of them in the preseason.
I know you're going to tell me one day at a time. That's all you worry about, but Maui is pretty close. Is there an urgency of knowing, like, we're going to be in this high level event, we've got to accelerate things as much as we can, and maybe that's why you did or didn't step up a big level in competition in a scrimmage that may or may not have happened?
Maui, guys, we play Chaminade on Monday. I mean, we play Chaminade on Monday. That's it. I mean, you know, what I'm more concerned about is practice this afternoon. We have officials coming in for practice. We got some things that we got to work on and clean up. Let's get through that. And the first game, I'll be thinking about Chaminade. Maui feels like ages and ages away.
It's not.
Hey, let's practice still feels like ages away, and that's a couple hours away.
Do you get nervous as the time gets closer and closer, and then especially as maybe as you're comparing it to how you felt as a player, are the emotions the same? Butterflies, anxiety, maybe? Or no? Freeze it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, sense of urgency, the butterflies, you know, man, first day of practice or going into every practice, I feel those. Certainly, you know, before the first game, before any game, you know, I'm like being a kid. You know, it's like one of the great parts about coaching is you get those, how people talk about it, but almost that like competitive drug, the way it makes you feel, right? I mean, it's really special, it's really unique, and the day that I don't have nerves or I'm not excited and can't sleep the night before the game, boy, that'll be the day I stop coaching. You know, but of course I get nervous just as much as anybody, and I mean that in a really good way, and I care a lot.
Coach, over these first few games of the season, is there any principles defensively or offensively that you're trying to say, this is what we've worked on heavily in the preseason, this is what we want to make sure is at least tidied up, ready to go, that we can maybe lean on early while we're working on some other things?
Are there anything in particular?
Yeah, anything, any particular
That'd just be
thing?
helping Chaminade, wouldn't it? I mean, tell them exactly what we've out. You know, listen, it's always, the foundation's always the same. You know, we want to really have an emphasis on how we defend and how we rebound. We want to play with pace and try to generate easy baskets in the open floor. If we can't do that, we want to work together and share the ball to get a quality shot. And then we want to try to get extra possessions by crashing the offensive board. I can tell you that in none of those areas are we where I want to be today. Are there certainly question marks in some of those areas from the preseason? Sure, and we're addressing them and trying to get better. But you know, the foundation of what we value and who we're trying to be as a program that's what it was this time last year. It's what it will be this time next year. How we go about that changes a little bit based on roster, based on, you know, your players. But the foundation's the same. I don't see that changing.
Are you starting to have a sense of what roles and rotations might look like once the games start Monday?
Yeah, Justin, I think you're starting to, you know, we certainly try to do that as we had our last scrimmage last weekend. We were certainly for the first time trying to like take a real look at what real rotations may look like and real combinations may look like, and hey, maybe that one's not the right lineup to have out there. So yeah, for the first time in the preseason, I mean, you're always thinking about it, but for the first time, you're really trying to put those things together, maybe over the last week and certainly into this week.
There's always talk of like, oh, you can go big with this lineup or small with that lineup. Game to game though, how hard is that if you're not specifically planning, this is how we play with a small ball lineup? How hard is it to do that game to game?
Yeah, I think it's more like preseason planning. You're looking at your roster and going, what are the potential lineups that you could play with, and you want to make sure that your offensive and defensive structure fits all those potential lineups, right? So you don't want to get to a place where the 5 best guys on the floor together could be these 5, yet we don't have a plan for how to utilize them. So that's something we spent all spring, all summer, all fall on, and I think we have the ability with the way we've structured both sides of the ball to get the best guys on the floor, which is going to look like different guys at different positions at times. But I think the way that we've structured it will allow for us to move guys in and out.
Vic has so many tools and skills. It just seems like he's this close from unlocking them all and really showing something special out there. How close do you think is Vic to really reaching that, I don't want to say reaching his potential, but just really unlocking something special out there for him?
Yeah, Vic's taken a huge step. I mean, a huge step from any point last season till now. Whether physically, he's just so much more consistent and so much better shape, so much stronger. Whether it's a better mental understanding of the game and the things that you have to value to win in college basketball. You know, he had such good international experience, but the college basketball game's different. And then a better self-awareness of his strengths and weaknesses. So yeah, he's taken a huge step, but I'll tell you, his talent and his ceiling is so high, he's still not anywhere near hitting the ceiling, and I think that's what's fun, is he's gotten a lot better, and there's still so much more room to grow, and I think he knows that, and I think it's been neat to see his confidence grow as he's improved.
As you get closer to the season and into the season, are you a guy that likes to, when you practice with the main starting unit against the second team, or do you like to mix it up daily?
Yeah, we really try to, especially with the depth that we have on our roster, we really try to mix it up and stay competitive every day. Certainly you're trying to put combinations together, and there's moments that you put everybody on one side and go against the scout team. We always do that to get different looks against different styles. But, all year, and we did this last year, we're gonna split the teams up and go at it and compete almost every day.
How much has that scout team ability changed things? Because 5-6 years ago, you couldn't really run a scout team out there, and now I know it's a big part of how you do things.
We've always utilized a scout team in practice to run different styles offensively and defensively to simulate opponents, but we utilize it in the preseason, like just to play against different, you're playing against different ball screen coverages on offense, because that are different than the ones that we use, or you're guarding different offensive actions, that maybe are actions you see all the time, but maybe aren't a part of our offense. So we utilize it daily, but at the same time, we'll have segments in practice where you're kind of working against a scout team per se, and then most of our segments are competitive, and it'll stay that way throughout the season.
2 more questions?
College head coaches obviously have a big influence on the non-conference schedule. Is there anything that you kind of key in on or are looking at when you're looking at the non-conference slate? Obviously this year's version, very home game heavy, or is it just kind of just getting in contact with different coaches and seeing where the chips fall?
2 things. Mike Roberts on our staff, who's got, he's like having another head coach. He handles a lot of our non-conference scheduling, and certainly all the final decisions, like anything in our program, are gonna come to my desk, but he does a lot of the grunt work, so I think, can't talk about non-conference scheduling and not mention his name, because he does so much of the work for us on that. And the second thing is, we do have a lot of say in this position for non-conference scheduling, but there's been a lot of stuff that was already in place when we got here. So there's still a number of non-conference games on our schedule that were contracted before I got the job here. So it wouldn't be fair to say that every non-conference game we're playing this year was something that I had a hand in the decision, because I don't know the numbers, but almost maybe half of them have nothing to do with any decisions we made, because it was already contracted years ago.
You talked about CJ. Do you view him as a 4th guard? Do you feel like is he going to get legit minutes, or is it maybe too early, too hard to tell?
Yeah, boy, it's a great question. CJ Anthony's a good player, guys. He's a good player. He had Division I scholarship offers. He's not on aid here, but to call him a walk-on would be totally wrong and unfair to him. We recruited him. We think he can play at Cincinnati, and he's done a heck of a job improving from freshman to sophomore year. I've said all along to our staff, we have to bring him along, that he's ready to step into games this year. Certainly he's got Rob and David and Shuey in front of him. So he's got 3 seniors in front of him at the guard position. But I'd feel confident, if need be, to throw him out there right now.
Any little bias there as a former walk-on?
Is there any bias? No, I certainly think when it comes to stuff like that, I can relate, and I have a soft spot in my heart for sure, because I know what it's like to be in that position. But when it comes to making decisions on the basketball court, it's about what the best thing is for our team, and no bias comes into play.